Forget zodiac signs and personality tests. All you need to do to find out the true character of a person is to ask one simple question. What is your favorite One Piece arc? Today, we're putting the entire fandom on the therapist's couch. From the Marineford veterans still suffering from donut-induced PTSD to the Skypiea enjoyers who feel superior because they realize how important that arc was even back then. I'm going to break down exactly what your favorite arc says about your soul. Keep in mind that these are not just my personal opinions. I'll only be speaking the language of facts from now on. Since I already mentioned them, let's start with the Skypiea Glazers. If this is your favorite, you're probably not a casual fan. You're here for the complex stuff, if you can call it that. You all walk around thinking you've unlocked a secret level of One Piece that the average fan simply isn't enlightened enough to comprehend. To you, anyone who skipped the arc isn't just a casual, they are practically subhuman. You look at them with the same pity as a history professor looks at someone who thinks the pyramids were built by aliens. You probably spend your weekends deep diving into ancient mythologies or watching 40-minute video essays on the fall of Rome. You either think the Nolan flashback is the greatest in the story or Enel's your favorite character. There's no in between. If it's the latter, you're probably living on a diet of pure copium. You haven't stopped swearing for 2 decades that Enel will return. He's going to descend from the moon like a lightning bolt wielding messiah. You've probably got the cover stories pinned to your wall, convinced that he's just up there building a robot army to mid-diff the entire planet. And let's not forget about Gear 5. Skypiea Glazers have been on the ultimate I told you so tour since 2022. You won't stop screaming about how the campfire silhouette was obvious foreshadowing from 20 years ago. You've probably bookmarked chapter 253 and pull it out at parties, and then wonder why you didn't get invited anymore. Next up, let's talk about the Impel Down enthusiasts. I have a massive amount of respect for this crowd. They love intrigue and unpredictability. The Hisashi dana Mugiwara line from Crocodile still gives you goosebumps, and fair enough, I still get them. If this is your peak, you live for the enemy of my enemy trope. Seeing Buggy, Mr. Free and Crocodile form an uneasy alliance with Luffy wasn't just a cameo to you, it was the greatest crossover in history. You crave the chaotic energy of a heist movie, where every floor brings a new nightmare and an unexpected ally. And your loyalty to Bon Clay is unmatched. Mention the word sacrifice and you're already tearing up over the gates of justice. Bon Clay represents the heart of the series to you. Then there's also a part of the Impel Down fandom more annoying than the rest. The people that will not stop gassing Magellan to the heavens, claiming his admiral level and the only villain with real stakes. I agree, he's underrated, but come on, he spends more time on the toilet than with his loved ones. And he's currently getting frame-mogged by Hannibal. Is this really your goal? Now, we're entering a fog. The fog of Thriller Bar. If this is your favorite arc, you aren't here for the classic shonen tropes. You're here for the aesthetic. You probably own more black clothing than a funeral director, and your Pinterest boards would make any edgelord proud. You're either one of those guys that comment that one Batman gif every time you see a goth girl, or the actual goth girl in the video. I actually know a guy who started the long journey of One Piece just because he thought Thriller Bark looked so cool. That's the commitment we're dealing with. You're a certified horror movie buff who thinks Tim Burton should have directed a live action. Your playlist is basically The Cure on loop, and you've probably listened to Join Me in Death by him enough times for your neighbors to get worried about your mental health. If you're a guy, or a lesbian I guess, you've had a massive crush on Perona since the moment she floated onto the screen. And don't look at me like that, I'm definitely not talking about myself here. You're likely a Mihawk stan too, but not for the agenda. You just like that he looks like a vampire and lives in a gothic castle with an alt girl. You value vibes over power levels. And honestly, in a world of brain-dead agenda posting, stunning a ghost girl in a cool hat is a respectable choice. Not to forget the greatest character in fiction, Gecko Moria. Massive shout out to the Thriller Bark fans. Moving on to the people who place Wano above all else. If this is the peak for you, you're an animation junkie. Some of you likely spent years as a One Piece hater, complaining about the art style, only to do a completely 180 once the series started looking like a high-budget psychedelic dream. The rooftop is likely your favorite part of the entire story, and you've definitely watched the Zoro vs King fight more times than you've spoken to your own kids. Seriously, go check on them. The majority of Wano fans are also avid Gear 5 defenders. If you're a Wano stan, you're the frontline infantry in the Twitter trenches. Anyone who calls the Looney Tunes physics disappointing or too goofy is immediately hit with your 50-part thread on why they simply don't understand Luffy's character. Y'all are also massive sword nerds. There is a 90% chance that you own a dull stainless steel replica of the Sandai Kitetsu that you bought on Amazon, and you definitely tried to hold it in your mouth at least once just to see if the free sword style was physically possible. Y'all live for the hockey clashes and the lightning bolts. To you, a chapter without a massive explosion or a planet-sized fist is a filler chapter. You're here for the spectacle, the Kaido-sized stakes, even if you still can't explain why Big Mom forgot Conqueror's haki during her fight. Next, we have the Dressrosa devotees. You aren't here for the straw hats. You're here for the pink feather coat. Don Quixote do Flamingo. He's the greatest thing to ever happen to you. 90% of your TikTok reposts are just Doffy edits. You carry his justice will prevail speech in your heart, and you've definitely used it to try to win a political argument at least once. Doffy's charisma is so blinding to you that you completely ignore the fact that the story took 2 years to cover a single afternoon. You're the most forgiving person on the planet when it comes to bad pacing. To you, watching characters run up a plateau for 40 episodes is just good tension. And you all see absolutely no problem with Rebecca's outfit. You'll genuinely swear on your mother's soul that weight distribution and mobility are key for a gladiator, while just being down bad in reality. She's 16, by the way. Next, we have the Marineford War Veterans. If this is your favorite arc, you aren't here for world building. You're here for big sweaty men from all over the world throwing hands. You're the type of person who lives for a battle royal, or skips forward in a Lord of the Rings movie to watch the war scenes. Your favorite part of any story is the moment the talking stops and the top tiers finally start swinging at each other, and you are currently vibrating with anticipation for the final war. You've never been more hyped for anything in your life. Because this arc is so universally loved, the fandom is split into different groups. On one side, you have the Akainu stans. You spend your days in the comment sections claiming he's the strongest in the verse and was the undisputed MVP of the arc. Fair enough, but explain to me why he's done nothing since. I swear, you Akainu stans love him to the point that you probably have Rule 34 Akainu saved as your phone wallpaper. On the other side, we have the Whitebeard loyalist. You've rewatched his final speech hundreds of times, and you likely took it as a personal insult when the community turned his tragic death into a meme. Every time you see Patrick Fabian, a vein in your forehead starts to throb.
The One Piece is real!
And then there are the Ace fans. For you, Marineford is either the greatest tragedy in manga history or a source of permanent trauma. You can't walk past a donut store without breaking down thinking about Akainu's fist. And finally, we've reached the Sabaody archipelago. Let's just admit it. If this is your pick, you're the GOAT. You're a connoisseur of P. You aren't just chasing the latest transformation or clashes. You actually care about the world building. You're the type of fan who lives for a god-tier character introduction. The second the supernova stepped onto the scene, or Kizaru rode in on that cannonball, you knew the series had shifted into a different gear. But most importantly, you understand the necessity of a total crushing defeat. You're the type of person who values growth over plot armor. You know that if Kuma hadn't sent the Straws on a mandatory 2-year vacation, they would have been one-shotted by the first Yonko commander who looked their way. Thank you so much for watching until the end. Please let me know in the comments if you want me to make a part 2. Also, if you liked this video, you're gonna have the time of your life with this one.